Hi, I'm Dr. Rex Rogers, and it's my privilege to serve as the president of SAT-7 USA. And today on Collaboration for Hope, I'm really privileged to invite our friend Panayiotis Keenan, who is the executive director of what we call SAT-7 PARS. That's our Farsi language channel that beams into Iran and elsewhere. He'll tell us more about that. So Panayiotis, welcome.
Good morning. Well, thank you for having me, Rex. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, but also to learn from you.
That's good. Panayiotis, appreciate it. And hey, I know you've been at SAT-7 PARS for about, I'm going to say 8 years. Is that correct? Since 2015. And you came from a television background, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about your own background, why you came to SAT-7 PARS, and then what it's like to be the first non-Iranian, as you're a Cypriot, first non-Iranian to be the executive director?
Well, yes, as you have said, as you mentioned, I began with SAT-7 PARS in 2015. Before that, I was working in secular televisions because I have studied and I have a master in media studies. I have studied cinematography to begin with, and then I went on to do my master in the media studies, where I had the opportunity to collaborate and work with various organizations and from the US that it might not be appropriate to mention some of them on this call, but they are very well known. During my career, I could definitely see and witness how important and how strong television was and is, because back in 1996, where I began my career, it was just television. Now we also have social media and digital media, but I'm sure we'll be mentioning that a little bit later in this call. So coming back from my studies, I had the opportunity to work in the first, as we call today, VOD platform, which was a satellite platform here in Cyprus. And we would just purchase anything that would attract the viewer to us, from films, series, like detective series, or some series that had housewives somewhere in it, so I don't want to be direct. But anyway, and we would create this VOD, let's say, as we call it today, platform, so people would join. But and we had a very high viewership, Rex. But to be honest with you, because I personally come from a Christian background, I always felt like, is this the right thing to do? And excuse me to say this, but is it the right thing to do to throw all of this junk 24/7? And I'm sorry to my friends from the secular world, but make people numb, because that was exactly what was and is happening. So 24/7 we bombard people with anything we can get our hands on, which will make good profit, and then we say, oh, we look at this, we're doing an excellent job, we have the best bundle, as we say it, and we're offering it out to our viewers. So we have all the best and major, let's say, sports events and all of that. At the end of the day, what are we really doing? And are we using television? This is what I was thinking back then. Are we using television in the best of its abilities? And from a Christian perspective. So this was always on my mind, but my career was going on and it was growing, to be honest with you. And then I met a friend who was working for SAT-7. And he told me, Panayiotis, we would like to produce programs, we would like to create, to build studios, and we would like to get your input in all of this. But to be honest with you, Rex, I told him, yes, sure, definitely, but I never really did it because I was so involved in what was happening. But that conversation really rang a bell, and it was rooted in my heart. And I called him back and I asked a little bit more about SAT-7. And he said, we're broadcasting in the MENA region, Christian content, and just changing people's lives. And I was like, wow, I'm here in the Middle East and I know exactly what's happening in the Middle East. I know what Egypt is all about, and Lebanon and Iran and Afghanistan. I was like, no way. I mean, people are coming to Christ through programs, through satellite. Wow. So anyway, I said, okay, because because of this and because of my Christian background, I would like to give it a go. So I had the opportunity to visit one of actually the only SAT-7 PARS Persian channel studio in Limassol, where it wasn't actually a real studio. It was like a villa. And so the swimming pool was there, and it was like a small house, And the guys they were doing the best that they could to produce the programs. But on the other hand, for me, it was a DIY studio, because you got, the wires from the ceiling and things hanging here, things hanging here. We just needed to pick all this up, and make a proper studio. Anyway, that's what we did after a couple of years. But at that point, it was like, really? So if I start walking around, I'll probably get electrocuted. And this is not exactly the way I want to die. Electrocuted in a DIY studio with Iranians. It didn't really sound, good. So anyway, I was there. So I have the opportunity, just to make a long story short, to stay during the afternoon. And during my visit there, I had already made up my mind that going back to Nicosia, it was bye-bye, guys, no, thank you. So during my visit there, I had the opportunity, Rex, to watch one of the children's programs that we were producing back then in SAT-7. Of course, with you and your team support and all our friends' support, as it continues up to today. And again, thank you for that support, because if it wasn't for the family of SAT-7 and all the friends of SAT-7, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today, and to produce that program that really opened my heart. So it was a children's program, and there was, I need to mention this. In the secular world, I was producing a sports program every Sunday afternoon. I mean, if you're into sports, you know what a Sunday afternoon program is all about. So maximum, Rex, we would like have 20 calls. And we were the first Sunday afternoon program with all of the broadcast rights. So, I mean, we were the thing to watch, when it comes to sports. So it was like 20, 25 calls. So I'm here watching a program in SAT-7 PARS in this DIY studio. The program begins. Half an hour into the program, we've got more than 50 calls. To be honest with you, I thought something's not right here, So I was thinking to myself, maybe there was someone in the kitchen just acting and changing his voice every call, and acting like a child. But that wasn't the case. That was not the case, Rex. And we had 12-year-olds, and we still have, of course. So our audience is a young audience, but with questions not even an adult can ask. With questions like, I want to meet Jesus. I want to be baptized. Can Jesus really protect us, me and my mother and my siblings, from domestic violence? Can he really change my father's heart to stop taking heroin or all of the addictions that the Iranian people unfortunately have and going through? And this really touched my heart. So I immediately took the decision to leave my career back and come to SAT-7, and I'm really honored and privileged. Okay, there are challenges, many challenges, but I'm really honored and privileged to be a part of SAT-7 and a part of SAT-7 PARS. Now to your second question, how did the Iranian community accept me as the first non-Iranian executive director? To be honest, there were some challenges, but when they also realized that I will do whatever I can, and I will be doing this for as long as I'm here to assist and to provide any kind of knowledge for them to grow spiritually, but also technically, but also to give the opportunity to create, let's say, programs, if you allow me, professional programs to reach out to their people in Iran, in Afghanistan, and to bring more and more of the Iranian people, of their people that today I call them my people, also to bring them to Christ. And to be honest with you, it's not difficult, because the Iranian people, if they welcome you in, you're in for life. And they also cook very nice food.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been privileged to visit that studio, as you know, Panayiotis, and to interact with your staff. And I know personally how dedicated they are, how committed, not only to the Lord, of course, but to their work, their calling. And they really do see it as a calling and the ability to reach out to the people in Iran, because they know the people in Iran just can't access spiritual truth on their own very much. Now, I want to shift gears. Most of our viewers will know something about the social unrest in Iran since last fall, with the killing of Mahsa Amini and the rise up, as it were, of mostly women. Now there's men too, even girls involved in all of this kind of thing. And I know SAT-7 PARS staff have been very sensitive to that, because some of them have family back there. And even if they don't, they care about the Iranian people. What has SAT-7 PARS done in a way of programming to try to speak into that very volatile and difficult situation in Iran?
Yeah, this has been one of the most difficult situations for us to address, because we always, as SAT-7 PARS, we always need to be very careful in how we address this kind of situations when politics is involved. And as you have mentioned, we also have staff who have been really, really impacted from what is happening inside the country, because it still continues to happen because of relatives and friends that they have in the country. During the unrest, and even until today, we cover the situation through our live programs, because we do have 9 live programs coming out every week. Mm-hmm. And you might say 9. Why do you need 9 live programs? But yes, we do need 9. And if we can, we will produce more, because this is how our viewers contact us. And this is how our viewers, in a way, feel comfortable and feel free to ask any kind of questions, and they will they will receive the answers there and then on a live program. But also we have so many requests coming in, either prayer requests or any other immediate requests, that our live programs give us the opportunity to address them there and then. Now, the people, this uprising, first of all, had some elements that we have not witnessed in the past. One is men going out in the streets supporting women. The other thing is that we have different kind of, let's say, minorities like Kurds or Azeris becoming one with Persians, and Afghans becoming one with Persians, men and women going out to the streets and participating in this uprising. And this was something which we as a channel needed, and we continue to do as today, to remain relevant with what is happening in the country, but always filter the situation through scripture. Because this is something that the people who are watching us are not offered, and they cannot get their hands on from any other channel that is broadcasting into the country. So there are until today, Rex, more than 25,000 people still detained because they have been arrested out on the streets. And it was also very encouraging for us to see how the Christians came also out of the underground church and were in the streets supporting the women, supporting the uprising, and raising their dissent in what has been happening the last 40 years. Because all of this unrest didn't just begin a year ago. It has been there for 40 years. And we have been addressing it since early 2000. So having seen the Christians being there, having seen all of these minorities join their voice together, gives us hope until today. Because the numbers might not be as much as they were, but they're still out there. And because of this, the United Nations now have an eye on Iran. Other human rights organizations have their eyes on Iran. And just to give you an example of the boldness of the Christians that we would never have seen in the past. They camped outside hospitals, giving medical aid to the protesters going in the hospitals, because if you go to the emergency and they realize that the medical treatment that you need anyway came from the protests, you would get arrested. That's why there's such a high number of 25,000. So the Christians went there, and when they realized that you got hurt in the protest, they gave you medical advice or treatment. So this shows the boldness that the Christians are now having inside Iran. And we as a channel producing all of these live programs, stand by them, educate them, but if you allow me, discipleship them. Because, Rex, is one thing to produce a program with good Christian content, but it's another thing to stand by them through the years to come, discipleship them and walk with them in this walk of faith.
Now, you must be hearing from these viewers, Panayiotis. What are some of them saying when they contact SAT-7 PARS?
If I start now, I will need another 1 week on this call, but I'm sure we don't have it. Rex, we have so many testimonies coming in, and that you will be amazed. But I will just mention a sentence that we received during the uprising, that we also received during when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, where the security, the countries who were in Afghanistan, and making sure that the Taliban did not take over ever, and we were trusting that this will continue, all of a sudden pulled back, came out of Afghanistan, and today we have the Taliban taking over. And still, though, the Christians sent the Afghan Christians, who let us please remind us that 97.8% of the population in Afghanistan are from a Muslim background. But there are Christians there, and there's a growing Christian community. And they send us messages saying, you are all that we have. You are our church. And listen to this. You are our voice. Now, Rex, for someone to contact any kind of a Christian ministry or just be related with any kind of Christian, let's say, content, you can immediately you will immediately be arrested and sentenced up to 12 years in prison, or can even be convicted to a death sentence. But these people there, and the age group begins from 6 years old and up to 106 years old. And they thank us for being their voice, being there for them. And it really, as I speak now, it gives me goosebumps, but it's also a great responsibility. It's also a great responsibility, because these are new believers. They're like babies, you know? So we need to be very careful about the theology we teach them, how we introduce them to Christ, and then how we discipleship them.
Now, Panayiotis, I remember you saying something similar when it all went down there a few months ago with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and you referenced, of course, the Afghans a moment ago. SAT-7 PARS is a Farsi language or Persian language channel, and yet the satellite footprint coverage broadcasts into all of Afghanistan. How is it possible that Afghans understand the programming, and then what kind of programming do you really try to produce to reach Afghans and encourage them?
First of all, I would like to say that the original Persian comes from Dari. So Dari is what the Afghans speak.
Right.
That is the original language, and Persian has been influenced by Arabic. This is just a small historical fact. Now, so this means that they understand Persian. So the Afghans understand what we produce, but yet, in order to honor them, we produce programs in the Dari dialect for our Afghan brothers and sisters. We also have a live program going out from Canada, a weekly live program going out from Canada in Dari. But we also produce pre-recorded programs through the year. To be honest with you, this is not easy. It has not been easy since 2002, because we didn't just come today and say, okay, the Afghans now are going through a problem with the Taliban, and because of the Taliban takeover, so let's produce more for them. We have been there for them, Rex, since the right beginning when SAT-7 PARS began. So through the years, though, it was very difficult to identify experts to be able, for us to be able to produce these programs with, but also to find Christians who were mature enough to be able to take part of these programs. Now, as I said earlier, because of our friends around the world who support SAT-7, not just financially, but also in prayer, because we do have prayer warriors around the world supporting us, there are many doors now opening. The Lord has helped us to open these doors and identify more and more Afghan Dari speakers, so we can produce more and more programs. And one of our new initiatives is called Church for Afghanistan. The first ever Christian church for Afghans. So we will be able to tell this to our grandchildren. That's why I'm a bit extra proud of it. The first ever church for Afghans, Rex, is produced right here on SAT-7 PARS. And we broadcast it through Facebook, because Facebook is not filtered in Afghanistan, because Facebook is the tool the Taliban use to communicate with each other. So if you allow me, we sneak in with them and we produce Church for Afghanistan.
Now, isn't SAT-7 PARS also broadcasting into Tajikistan? And how does that work? And how can people understand there?
Well, SAT-7 PARS, and thank you for mentioning this, SAT-7 PARS broadcasts from a satellite called YARSAT, Saudi-owned satellite, that again, through prayer, again, it's a long story, so I won't go into that. Through prayer, the doors were open for us to be able to broadcast from a Saudi-owned satellite. So Christian channel, Saudi-owned satellite. I know it doesn't sound very good, but you know, when with faith, a lot of things don't sound very straightforward, but the Lord always puts his hand in so things can happen. Like he did with Moses, he opens the sea. Does that sound logical? No, it doesn't. So it's the same with Yasad. It doesn't sound logical, but it's happening. Through Yasad, we are in Iran, Afghanistan. This is where the footprint is, and all the way up to Tajikistan. So we have the opportunity to produce programs, Rex, in Tajik, different dialect, totally different dialect. But because our footprint goes there, we try again, we have the same obstacles that we have with the Afghan programming, but we do produce more and more programs for Tajiks. And we are just very happy to see that we do have a lot of response coming from Tajikistan also. But since we're mentioning Iran, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan, this is Yasat's footprint. Allow me also to mention SAT-7 PARS, our new platform that the Iranians, Afghans, and Tajiks in the diaspora can also watch us through this new platform called SAT-7 PARS. So more or less, I would like to say today that, yeah, we cover the whole world.
I was going to say SAT-7 Plus is online and consequently can be accessed anywhere, including here in the United States. Now, it's interesting to me, where do you find Tajik speakers to produce that kind of programming?
$1 million question, yeah. A prayer request, please, because it's not easy. First of all, it's not easy because, again, they have the same dangers like they have in Iran and Afghanistan. Once you have been identified with any kind of a Christian ministry, then you will not be allowed into your country. With Tajikistan, you are allowed in your country, but there might be a kind of a surveillance, or they might give you a hard time. With Iran and Afghanistan, there is no way you go back, and your family will suffer. So what we do, Rex, is we through the Tajiks in the diaspora who go to churches, local churches in Europe or in the US, who visit conferences, we try to approach them, meet with them, and then according to their strengths or their knowledge, we will then start planning to produce a program regarding our Tajik brothers and sisters.
And you must be hearing from Tajik viewers from time to time.
Yes, we do hear from Tajik viewers, and the testimonies are a bit different from Tajikistan because, as I said, Tajikistan is a bit more open to Christianity than Afghanistan and Iran. But the testimonies that we receive is that they are the way. So some testimonies would say that the way that we deliver the scripture to them with the clarity that we have, and I would say the spirituality that our presenters have, because it's very important for the person who delivers to also walk in faith 100% and to also be filled with the Holy Spirit, because the viewer, Rex, will feel it. I mean, don't you feel it? And I feel it. I definitely feel it. You know, when I'm talking with, I mean, I love all the pastors, but there are some pastors who are really very special sometimes, and they just talk to my heart. And because it happens to me, I would like that experience for our viewers to have it also. So we try to enrich, we try to equip our presenters with spiritual knowledge, theological knowledge. So when they're producing a program for people in Tajikistan, in Afghanistan, in Iran, to talk to their hearts directly. So the messages we receive from Tajikistan are very straightforward, and they are thanking us for the way we deliver the gospel to them. Because yes, they might have heard it, but in other ways.
Now, I've been to the SAT-7 PARS studio, as you know, in Limassol a couple of times, mentioned that earlier. Great experience to see what you've done with your do-it-yourself studio that you all created from the ground up. Incredible, including all the wiring and the computers and all the rest. And then your very talented and dedicated staff. And one of the things that we saw the last time we were there is a new program and a set called Sweet Anecdotes that you all, your staff, literally conceived from scratch, from nothing. And I think that programming was designed to try to help better communicate Bible programming, Bible stories, let me say, to children. And then I was blown away by the fact that not only is this little animated set was created by your own staff. You know, the drawings, the artistic aspect of that, of the little figures, and you move them around so that they can tell the story. And I had a little fun, as you remember, with your staff. Said, "Hey, can I be a figure? Can I be a person in Sweet Anecdotes?" And they said, "Sure, we'll put you in there sometime." I said, "Well, make me a bad guy, you know, so whatever." So we'll see.
I think they drew a Goliath out of you.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But tell us a little bit about Sweet Anecdotes. That's an incredible story.
First of all, the translation in Farsi of Sweet Anecdotes is not the way it's heard in
Yes.
English. You know, Rex, many times, just talking about titles, we try to give titles in order for even non-believers to be curious and come forward and watch the program. So this the program Sweet Anecdotes, as you correctly said, we built it from zero. So we use scissors and we use glue and we use like little sticks, you know, it's like puppet sticks, as we say.
Amazing, yes.
And everything is 100% handmade. So we're old school. We don't use animation technology, and we're old school when it comes to Sweet Anecdotes. Generally, we're not old school because we have virtual productions. We are teleporting people. That's another story. So we have Sweet Anecdotes where, and to be honest with you, this is why it took us 2 years to produce 3 episodes. For 2 years, we produced like 5 series of a program. But anyway, it's okay. So we do everything from scratch, everything from zero. And I just hope we had some footage at this point to show our beloved friends to how much work, you know, it's put here. So maybe at some point you can put the link somewhere and people can download, and just so they can have an idea, because I'm not sure I'm advocating correctly.
No, you tell the story. It's fantastic. I think it's amazing that your people not only conceived of how to do it, but then they did it. They had the artistic ability to literally draw these little figures that look quite realistic, you know, these little people.
And none of them have an education, let's say, in a drawing, or it's just they learn. It's learn as they go. But this is where prayer comes in. This is where intelligence comes in. I mean, you can have 10 PhDs, but if the Holy Spirit doesn't work in you and enlighten you and give you the Lord's wisdom, we're not able to do anything.
Well,
so
we certainly saw it and felt it when we were there walking among the sets. It was a high point, really, of our experience when we were there. Now, you mentioned virtual production, and that's a phrase, actually, that I learned from you when we were there last time in May, because I usually said green screen, which is only one aspect of it all. But I know one of our ministry partners here in the States made some funds available, got involved in helping SAT-7 PARS acquire a green screen, and then now you're doing much more in virtual production. Just tell us a little bit about that and where it's going.
Well, it's exciting to talk about handmade DIY sets and then just jump to the virtual production set. It just makes it so exciting for all of us here. But before I jump to the virtual sets, it's just important to let our friends know regarding Sweet Anecdotes, the handmade sets. It is the first time, Rex, that we go through the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation for children. So these small puppets will at some point go through the whole scripture, Farsi, for the Iranian children and for the Afghan children, because it's so important to educate the new generation of Iranians, Afghans, and Tajiks, because they are open to know. It's just the governments who are not allowing them to know. Virtual production. Virtual production is something that gives us the ability to have any kind of a moving set in a 3D animation, motion picture, Hollywood style, and be able to produce high quality, high end programs And also, we can now use a technology where we can have guests in Iran or in Afghanistan, teleport them to the studio in Limassol and have them as a guest right there, and it looks so real. I mean, you probably saw it in the US. You probably have this experience on a daily basis when it comes to news or when it comes to Super Bowl, where they teleport people and there's just a lot of animation going on. But when it comes to the Christian world, especially in the MENA region, we would like, if you allow me to say, we are pioneering. And this is what virtual production allows us to do, to produce in 3D animation, to have all the 3D sets behind us, but also teleport guests from a region which is so difficult to go through live through Zoom or Facebook or whatever. So we are very grateful that through the US team and through this friendship that you guys have with our donors, we had this opportunity. We have this opportunity to produce the virtual sets. And one of the main reasons is that we're producing, I mean, yes, sets and all of this, but having the content that we have, because we are very proud in the content that we have, because we do have fabulous experts and pastors on our programs, but we're now combining these recs with technology. So this means that a younger generation can be approached through all of the animation, all of the movement, all of the teleporting. So we can combine content with high-end technology, and this will allow us to approach a younger generation, but some new, let's say, audience, because this is something which is very high on our agenda at the channel, the youth, the young people, and to just get out there and reach out to as many as young people in Iran and in Afghanistan and new viewers as possible.
Now, this is a simplistic question, but is it more expensive or less expensive when you're able to use virtual production?
Less expensive.
Because you don't have to always be on site with your people somewhere. You can bring in the video behind them, so that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, you're becoming a television expert, by the way, because you've got all the production answers, and you're becoming very good. So I need to, I need to be careful here. So yes, exactly.
You and I both know that SAT-7 and SAT-7 PARS specifically would not be on the air if not for our faithful ministry partners, not only in the United States, but in Europe and elsewhere in the world, who financially support, as well as prayer, what we've done for the last 27 years. Are there some specific things that come to mind? And if not, that's okay. But funding challenges and opportunities right now for SAT-7 PARS, what are you thinking about in the next 3 or 4 years?
Well, I think I mentioned it through our podcast that without our donors, without our friends in the US and also from other parts of the world, we will not be able to do what we're doing today. We wouldn't be able to be such a big part of the house church inside the country. And let's again be reminded that Iran has the fastest growing underground church in the world.
Amazing,
and I am happy we recorded this, because one day we'll go back and we will say that we were talking about that Afghanistan will be the next, because there are a lot of similarities of the persecution that took place 40 years ago inside Iran, and that persecution was one of the reasons the church grew, and the same persecution now Afghanistan is going through. Rex, we need as much as support as we can get, because it's not easy what we're doing here. There are a lot of obstacles, and our dream is in Iran, in Afghanistan, also in Tajikistan, to have a church in every city and the Bible in every hand. But at the moment, because we cannot be on the ground, all of this happens, the education, the just putting the gospel out there happens through satellite and through digital media. So any kind of support that comes, especially when it comes to our digital media platforms that we are now expanding on, is just a great blessing for us. But a prayer request will be for us to be able to identify the right people to go in front of the camera, right people to be there and just have the background and have the knowledge needed in order to reach out to more and more people inside Iran and inside Afghanistan. Of course, we pray that we are able, Rex, to produce more and more in the Dari dialect, especially when it comes to programs that educate young people.
Well, Panayiotis, I was going to ask you to share, kind of wrap us up with 2 or 3 prayer requests. You've mentioned a couple there. Do 1 or 2 more prayer items come to mind?
Please pray for pray that we will find new talent, but please continue to pray for the people that are working in SAT-7 PARS, and the people, as I said earlier, who are risking their lives to go in front of the camera. Please pray for them, but also please continue to pray for the people who are behind the cameras. Please continue to pray for our support offices, because they are out there day in, day out, raising awareness to the West as we raise awareness through our programs inside Iran and inside Afghanistan. So please continue to pray for the SAT-7 ministry, that we continue to make God's love visible and reach the unreached.
Well, again, thank you, Panayiotis, for sharing all that you have. You're certainly one of our favorite SAT-7 colleagues. We appreciate your passion, your dedication, but it's based on the knowledge and the wisdom of how you proceed, how God has given you professional expertise, and now you're using it in leadership with your staff. And so we're very grateful for that. Ask God's blessings upon you and your young family, and trust that we'll see you again soon, face to face.
Thank you very much, Rex. Again, it was a great pleasure to be here with you today. And I pray for you and your team to grow even more, and that the Lord protects you and blesses you. And of course, for all your families. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Panayiotis, and God bless you.
Thank you.